Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today we're going to talk about relationships, which, as you know, my book, Flipping the Iceberg, it is all about relationships, because if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself first, and then with your partner and your children, then it's going to be very stressful and very difficult to be able to run your business without being sidetracked. And so because of that, we have Dr. Laurie Emery in the house, and we're going to talk about relationships and the importance of it. And she's also going to give us tips and other things. So Laurie, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's one of my favorite topics. I call myself a relationship expert only because I have done deep diving into who am I in all my relationships, especially with my intimate partner and my beautiful children. 5 total children, 3 of my own and 2 we took in. So it's been a lot of practice over the years and in a 20-year marriage, along with the blessing I've had to have some amazing mentors mentor me along the way in what it means to get to the root of cleaning out our stuff so that we don't put all of that toxic stuff from our history into our relationships. So it's a combination of my own experiences along with my training. And one of my most favorite topics, of course, is how do you balance being a great role model for our children, being an inspiration to them and a model of somebody who does build a company and us women who have it all. But it's a balancing act, as I think most of us really understand. And I think that our own personal healing is the key, my belief is that our own personal healing becomes a gift to our family. Right. I used to think being a good mom meant sacrificing myself on the altar and taking care of everybody else's needs and putting myself last. But here's the truth I believe today is that I learned, and I learned it the hard way, is that when I heal, they heal. I've walked through the fire of my own childhood trauma and addiction and my own not good enough stuff. And I tried to outwork it and outrun it and out hustle my unworthiness for many, many years, becoming an overachiever, only to realize that the only thing that comes with that is burnout. And that's not teaching my kids anything healthy that I want them to learn. So realizing that healing isn't hustle, it's honoring me and what's going on inside of me. And when I started doing my own deep nervous system work and regulating my emotions and facing my own unfinished stuff in my history and unlearning perfectionism, and watched all my relationships shift. And so my presence changed everything. It changed my own fulfillment of my everyday life. It changed my interaction in my relationships. My energy changed. And then I think my legacy has changed now, what I'm leaving behind for my children. And guess what? My clients, the people who are watching your episode, really brilliant, driven women like us, they start doing this healing work and suddenly their kids stop melting down as much and they're not fighting as much with their partner and their partners are more connected and home feels less chaotic. And I say that our healing is contagious because it becomes the safest permission slip, if you will, for your family and for what they ever get from you. So I think that's been a really big piece of all of my life's work is how do I make sure that I'm living what I teach in my household and bringing it home to my own family. So
I think the old adage, do as I say, not as I do. And as a mom, sometimes it's like, I want you to go and I want you to be whoever you want to be. You can accomplish anything, but then they stay at a job making $10, $15 an hour. And so it's like the kids going, huh, well, why are you doing this or why? And it's the same thing is you need to heal, but yet you're not. I have a very close family member that made a mistake early in their, and I don't think it was a mistake, but things happened. And so this perfect person who was supposed to accomplish these things and do these things and behave a certain way and, ended up something happened to him that was very different. And it was never talked about when I was a child. And they said, well, if you talk about it, this person will just crumble and it will kill them, you know? So it's
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh my gosh, I can't say anything. It's taboo subject. And then years later, as an adult, I mean, I'm talking like, it was probably, I mean, I'm 50 now, so I would think it wasn't even until my 30s that this person started talking about their mistake. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're giving me permission to bring this up and have a conversation. And because of that, it was this generational thing where other family members made the mistake. And I'm trying to be, I don't want to, out of respect for them, I don't want to
Yeah.
go into detail. And so it's like, had you just talked about this earlier? They probably wouldn't have followed in the same footsteps. And so it's like when trauma breeds trauma instead of healing. And so now this person has 180 to has come to terms with anything in their past. They have healed. And it's so interesting to see. But I feel like the damage has been done to this family to watch. And it's just like, had you just talked about it? And I think that you're right. As we heal, we can heal our family, we can heal other people. And if we don't, then they tend to repeat the same patterns.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to say out loud, our kids do not need perfect moms. And I had to learn this because I was always afraid of like, if I'm not perfect, then, what's going to how am I going to mess up my children? They need us to be present and available and real. Presence isn't just a mindset. It's literally a nervous system reset or nervous system literacy, right? It's knowing how to notice when we're spiraling, when we're freezing, when we're rage responding, and then choosing different. And like with my son, who he was my first, was a force to be reckoned with for me. And with all my tools, I put myself back into my work because I'm like, I don't know how to be the best mom for him unless I'm working on myself. So I would teach him to breathe with me. We would name emotions in the moment. Like I would say, like, I'm overwhelmed right now. So I'm gonna take a breath and breathe because it isn't gonna be good if we keep going. So modeling repair and not shame is really important. And like you're talking about, right? I created safety by showing my kids how to co-regulate and not expecting him to just behave better. And
Yeah.
I also made myself human, that I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. And I think when we normalize emotional literacy in our homes, when nervous system language becomes as common as snack time, we raise kids who they trust themselves, they know themselves, are emotionally intelligent, and then they don't need to recover from so much in their childhood. I think Look, I know when I built my first business, I built it out of pure survival. I was so spun up on all of this high performing and internally anxious, and I chased clients and over delivered, and I was burned out, numbed out, and then did it all again because I thought success meant staying one step ahead of, failing or collapsing. But, I think unfortunately we learn by those mistakes, right? I learned that regulating my energy is the most magnetic thing I can do on the planet, whether it's my marketing strategy and my business or in attracting clients or my children who they trust me because I'm honest like that I'm real and I make mistakes. And I say to them, what'd you learn? One of my daughters just she's 16. I have three new drivers and she had an accident in my car and I think it's totaled and she felt terrible. And all I said to her was, look, what'd you learn?
Mhm.
And let's move forward because what else are we going to do? And I walk that walk with them of giving myself grace when I make permission and when I make mistakes and making sure my decisions aren't fear-based and that I create from feeling abundant and overflow within myself and not fear and obligation and make wrong and shaming. It's so important.
Yeah, it is to admit that you make a mistake and say, I'm sorry to your child. A lot of parents don't, they think that that's weakness. And I have a son that getting a job has been very hard because I don't know what it is. He has a role model in his life where a job doesn't exist. The parents bail them out. And so it's been hard to watch. And he went from
Yeah.
this kid who, like, this entrepreneur, had all these grandiose dreams to being paralyzed, afraid to get a job. And so we had to
Mm.
work through that. And he did just last week. He got his very first full-time job. and he's super excited and it's changed him. He has confidence right now. And so
Yeah.
it's fun to watch. But I got to be honest, like the frustration, because I started working in seventh grade doing a paper route, like four of them. So I was up every morning. I learned the meaning of hard work. And then I became this overachiever, like you talk about, until my niece came and stayed with me for a day. And we were driving, and she made the comment, she said, yeah, I don't know why my mom feels like she has to like become like do so much. She overdoes things, and I don't know what is it about her. She doesn't feel good enough, and so she tries to over accomplish on everything. And I'm like, you're talking about me. And I know she's talking about her mom, but I could take that same advice because I was the same way. I had to be overachiever, most involved in everything possible. Why? What am I trying to prove? And then it hit me hard, and I don't think she even realizes that. But it's what is the deficiency? And then we start to push our kids. Well, you have to be the best. You have to be better than this person. You have to. And instead, I feel like I've gone the opposite, where I don't want to push them very much because of the pressure that I know I put myself under. So there
Mm,
is this like happy
yeah.
medium. How do we get them there? That
Yeah, I mean, I think it's where you're pushing from, which is
yeah.
what you're talking about, right? When we're pushing from our own unfinished stuff and our hyperachiever, which is
Mhm.
driven by a fear, we all learn survival skills when we were growing up, right? We have some of us are avoiders and some of us are pleasers, and as a survival strategy. You and I, and probably a lot of the moms who are listening, one of our survival strategies became hyperachieving. And I think that when we can take what's driving, I love achieving to this day, but when I could take the fear out of it, that I'm not achieving anymore out of fear, then I could tell, and I think our kids, like your niece, they're little sensing machines. They pick up our energy. They know where we're operating from. We can't hide it. And so I think that shift of I'm achieving because I love achieving and this is
Right.
fun, it doesn't mean anything about how good enough I am. I think that shift from survival to power is really important. And like, I want this to be a revolution for all moms who are business owners or achievers that if you're putting the not good enough gas in your car, you're going to burn out. You're not taking care of yourself. You're being right. You're the anxiety and the fear stuff. Your children are going to pick it up. Shift that, then pushing them to their greatness, pushing them to what they're capable of becomes easier because it's not clouded with you need to achieve like I did, right? When women no longer martyr themselves or use that fear-based parenting style in motherhood or business even, right? Where we feel good and we show up whole and then we model what's possible. We stop performing and we're fully embodied. I think that the answer to that becomes way simpler because then how many children do you have? I'm curious.
There's six.
You have three, you said?
No, six.
Six. Awesome. That's a lot. And so they're all so different,
Yeah.
right? And where each of their growth edges are and how to push them each to their best. And that's what I tell my kids. As long as you're doing your best and you're not being lazy or
Right.
convenient and comfortable, I call it, then I'm happy with your results. But if you're sitting back doing just what's bare minimum, I'm going to push you to your best because I'm not going to hold you small.
Yeah.
And that's the language I use with my children. And it's a part of us, I think, rewiring generational patterns and creating legacies that aren't trauma based and not pretending that emotional dysregulation is part of being a mom. And right, this work for ourselves and taking care of ourselves means everything to changing the game for women, not just for us, but for every life we touch, for the example that we're setting around us for other women and girls coming up behind us. I think it's so important.
I agree. I was always this like above 4.0 type student, right? But I worked my freaking tail off because I had
Yeah.
anxiety big time. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until I got to college where I worked my tail off and all I could get was a C. To be honest, there was a D in there too. And that was the proudest D or C that I ever got because I did my best. And if you were to compare it to someone else who's got this A, they'd think, what's your problem? But for me, and it wasn't until that point, because I got super, super sick in college, that was as much as I could do. Like the doctors told me I should probably take the semester off and go home and recover. And I refused to because I had a goal, right? And so I think I learned like It's what can you learn? You mentioned that with your daughter in the accident. What can you learn? And for me, it was if I can look myself in the mirror and say I did my best and that's all I could do, then I have to be proud of it and not
Absolutely.
compare myself. And so that's a lesson that I've tried to give to my children is so if they don't get the A, but they're A students, like they
Yeah.
don't have to study. They can just ace a test. They're just lazy and didn't turn in their homework.
Yeah.
I have issues with that, right? And so I think that it's the same thing in anything we can apply that in our lives is, with your relationship. Are you giving as much as you can or could you do better? And that comes with our students, sorry, I'm a teacher. That comes with our
Fine.
kids, it comes with our spouse and ourselves. And if we could be doing better, then we need to. And is it okay to take breaks? Not. But if they're sitting on a phone all day or a computer all day, just wasting time playing a video game, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm the recovering perfectionist. I take out the word better because I feel like for me that word, just as a possibility for our listeners, is that word like there's always better, right? And I think if I can do things in excellence, what I know I'm capable of,
Mhm.
right? And like you, I agree with you so much about the if my kid comes home with a C and I say, "Did you do your best?" then I'm happy with your C.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if they come home with the grade, I'm like, well, if you didn't do your best, then how did that feel that
Yeah.
your result matches the energy you put into
Yeah.
it? So okay. And are you happy with that? No. Okay, well then next time, what's the shift, right?
I like
So I
that.
agree with you that keep them off of that not good enough thermometer that we lived on is the just keep checking in with yourself because you can't lie to yourself, right?
It's true.
Teaching them to be more attached to how they feel about the effort they put in and the level of excellence rather than my judgment about it.
So important.
They know. But I do a Keys to Mastery program that has people look at where am I operating from? Because I am the context, I'm the environment that all my results come out of. Whether it's how I'm in relationship with my husband or my children or my career and clients, or even my own self-care and personal development, because that's the one that used to come off my calendar pretty quickly. It's like, oh, it's just my self-care. I can take it. And I don't do that anymore. I'm like, that isn't good for me if I'm the foundation of everything that I'm doing. And so that shift becomes really important as well.
I love that. So that is a good transition. I do want to go to the relationship side with our partners because you have tons of experience and you've created, is it the power couple paradox or you've created a few different words that I like. And
Yeah, I have the integration breakthrough and I do couples work that's called Pathways to Intimacy.
okay. Can you explain?
And what I do there is that so unlike couples therapy, and so I don't for those of you listening, I formally left the mental health field in 2012 because I was so frustrated with it. We weren't really helping people. Charisse, I can't tell you the number of couples that come to me because I specialize in relationship building that'll say, well, we've done the work, we went to therapy and it didn't help because couples therapists tend to take their individual skills and apply them to a couple, and that's not couples work.
Ben.
Every couple has what's called a survival knot. And I was trained by one of the best, Haiti Schleifer, back in the day. Like spirit put her in my path. And I'm so grateful because not only have I used it in my life, but I work with all of my couples this way where everyone in relationship has this knot where we've plugged in like puzzle pieces. And if we don't begin to clean that out, it starts creating whether it's a block or tension or fighting or even just quiet disconnection. The hardest part in coupleship is when we hit those dark times, we want to get out. And it's easy to do, right? Because divorces, what is it? The highest percentage of divorces in the last 40 years hasn't changed. It
Yeah.
hasn't changed because we're not working with couples in a way that we should. What I do in Pathways to Intimacy is couples work together. I'm not in the middle of their relationship. And you teach couples how to not only hold space for each other, actually fully listen and understand and be with whatever their partner is bringing up. And in that, the magic that happens is they begin to learn more about each other because now we're not reacting, defending, arguing, blowing each other off. We learn how to listen to the content for what's the music underneath that even has it important for partner to bring this to me. And then creating what I call a couples code, a couples contract, where we look at what are we committed to creating in this relationship? Because if we don't, it's the GPS, right? If we don't know what we're committed to, then we just go every day and react instead of going, wow, we are consciously creating this relationship, which is the floor that your family stands on, and it's the space that your kids play in. So everything you do with how do you do intimacy? How do you communicate? How do you repair after an argument or tension? You're teaching that to your children. And so it becomes super important that, a lot of couples will go, well, we've paid so much attention to our children over the years that we didn't pay attention to our relationship. And really, it should be the exact opposite. I know I'm talking a lot, but I love this topic so much. Like,
Yeah.
I'm passionate about it. That if we're the foundation, then we are teaching our kids how to
Mhm.
be whole in relationship.
Oh my gosh, I wish we could have the whole day to talk
I
because
know, me too, me too.
and I'm actually really passionate about that. And this is something that I've actually started going into as well, is because I'm on a mission to save marriages. Because the highest divorce rate right now, if you look at the research, are people 65 and older because they've raised their kids and now they
Yeah.
look at each other and they're like, we've grown apart, we don't like each other, or we never liked each other, but we stayed together for the kids. And it's like if you've committed, like my ex-in-laws, and I will call them out, when I was married to their son, they were just horrible to each other. And his dad actually helped us finish a basement once. We moved from that house, but we're like, why are you helping? He goes, well, because if your mom kicks me out, I need a place to stay. And we're like, oh, that's awkward. But they hated each other. And we would hear about them screaming, yelling, crying, and she would lock herself up or whatever it was. And today, now granted, two of their three kids are still in the house, unfortunately, but today they absolutely love each other. They love spending time together. They're the cutest little couple now, and they made it work. And so they're one of those anomalies where they were planning to divorce each other after their kids, but maybe it's because their kids had never left the house. I don't know. But they're in it together and they're tight. And so it's like, why can't we have more of those success stories? And they've
Yeah,
figured it
we
out.
should. We should have more of those success stories. If the professions where they were looking for help to learn this, and then get me on the school system, like if we would teach relationship tools starting in kindergarten, these kids would come out of school with such higher emotional literacy.
Yes.
But no one teaches it, right? Even parenting, like we don't have to have any kind of certificate to be a parent. And then
Yeah.
we have no tools and we're winging it every day in both the two most important relationships we have, our partners and our children. Relationships hard. You're taking two people from totally different backgrounds and cultures and putting them together and trying to make it work with no tools,
Yeah.
right? And so we end up repeating what we've learned, or if we think we're doing the exact opposite, we create a different problem. We're in resistance. And so I could talk with you about this all day long. It's my favorite. My husband and I actually got married 23 years ago, got divorced and got married again. And now we're heading into 20 years. And without these tools, we wouldn't have made it.
I 100% agree. And it's interesting because when I kind of kicked my husband out, and I'll take the responsibility for that, I did. He only because I forced him to live up to what he said. He made this agreement with me. He didn't live up to it. And I said, enough is enough. I'm going to hold you accountable. And I waited for 8 months for him to come around and he wouldn't. And so it's a hard thing because sometimes you have to realize my dad likened it to being on a train track. You're standing there on the train track and the train's coming. Are you going to get off or are you going to stay on it and let it bulldoze you over? And so it's hard. It's a hard thing to make a decision, especially when you have children involved. And I would never wish that upon any person and definitely not upon any child because it is very difficult. Unfortunately for my ex and I, we've been able to amicably work through things, choosing not to be in the picture much, but we do have a good relationship, whereas some of those other people, they can't even talk to each other. And
Yeah.
I just think it's sad when you have spent as much time as you've spent with somebody, whether it be, a couple years or 10 years or 30 years, and now you can't even look at them or talk to them or be in the same room. It's like, what happened? And
Yeah.
so relationships are something that it affects everybody and your business. So let's kind of talk about that when you talk about power couples and entrepreneurship. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's the thing I find the most because I work with founders and entrepreneurs the most is they spend so much time building the business and then they put their relationships with their partners and their children on the shelf. And especially when you've got even two as a power couple, two entrepreneurs, where then that becomes the way they connect. And really, it becomes a way to avoid intimacy, not knowingly. I think it happens unintentionally, but because when you've got two hyperachievers together and they haven't resolved that within themselves, you just bring it into your marriage. And again, if they had the tools to understand how to reset, because they've got so many great skills, right? Being a high achiever, being driven, knowing what it means to be committed even when it gets hard. They've got a lot of great skills that they point at the business. Now, if we can take those great skills, clean out the survival stuff, and then point those at the relationship, the magic happens there because we're powerful people already. We've already built what we've built. And so we've got some of the ways we're operating that actually work if we could point them to our marriage and then sink down into I think as human beings, Charisse, we have a natural fear of intimacy. It's scary to be known and to be seen and to be vulnerable. It just is. I mean, it's worth it though, when you can break through those fears and hold space together in such a vulnerable way to help each other grow when we get stuck. But again, without the tools, just, I think a lot of couples want it. They just can't figure out how to get there. And then they give up because the fighting isn't worth it and the lack of fulfillment and the misery isn't worth it. So, like you said, I think that a lot of relationships could be healed. And I'm not saying that divorce is wrong or staying together is right, because I don't have that belief. Especially if there's abuse or when we've gotten married really, really young and we haven't been able to, maybe we got married for the wrong reasons or whatever it is. But I think in a lot of coupleships, there is an answer and people give up because they've searched and they can't find it.
No, I agree with that. And I think right now, and this is going to air a couple months later, but all over Facebook. And I didn't understand why. I saw that guy, and the girl's right below him, and it turns out that he's the CEO of a company and she was hired a couple months ago and they're caught on the Jumbotron and they both freak out and hide. And the damage that is going to do to the children. And it's interesting, like it'll be interesting to see what happens. Is it something where you'd say, okay, let's try to make this work as the couple, his wife and them, or is it ultimate betrayal and the whole national TV and national everybody knows about his affair, and how do you handle that? And so what caused him to go to that place? And can there be forgiveness, or does he want to move on? And it's just, I'm using that as an example because I think so many people it happens to. And how do you want it to work or do you not? And if two people are willing to make it work, then give it a try and run. If one person's like, I'm out, now the question is why? Is it you or is it me? And is there a chance that we can still kind of work through it? And I agree, abuse, that's a whole different world. We're not talking about that.
Yeah, that's where the line is drawn for sure.
So very quickly, nervous system regulation. So your work is done with the nervous system.
Yeah, so I combine all the tools. I bring in, I think mind, body, and spirit combined is really important. And that in this human condition, I have a belief that we're a spirit or energy housed in this meat suit while we're on this planet. And knowing how to read the body is really important. And mindset alone is not enough. Reading your thoughts, tracking your thoughts, following physical sensations that light up in the body, and knowing what emotion, having that emotional literacy connected to all three, because our experience is made up of those three things: our thoughts, our feelings, and our physical sensations. And when we can track them, we can stay and be with it and then look to understand, like, is this an old memory that got stuck in my body? It's not healed. And what do I do with it? And then how do I make a request with my partner or someone I'm close to and create the healing moment? Because we get wounded in relationship. We need to heal in relationship. And the way to do that is to know what's happening here and then to know how to ask to get our needs met in a vulnerable way and how to understand those triggers. Instead, what people do is they're reacting to them all the time because they're in their blind spots or they think that the cause is outside of them. that whatever circumstance or person is the reason why we're emotionally triggered. And it's easy to want to blame things outside of us, but when we can stay here and be home inside of ourselves, that's where our power lies. And without that, you're going to be reacting to life. And that's not powerful. That's survival.
Right. That's beautiful. Okay. I know we're over time. So one last question, because we're going to completely switch gears now.
Okay.
And I want you to imagine yourself sitting on a park bench and
Okay.
just enjoying the beautiful day. And this very young, 9-month pregnant, first-time mom comes and sits next to you. And you get talking. What is one piece of advice you give her about motherhood, if it could be anything?
Take care of yourself first. Know yourself. And give yourself permission to be a real human being with your children.
I love that. Very, very good advice. And if our listeners wanted to connect with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, just go on Ignite with Dr. Laurie. If you Google that, you'll find me, and they can either contact me or take a look at my programs or get my free book called Ignite Your Life. It's all on my website.
I love that. Well, thank you, Dr. Laurie.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Charisse.
Yes, thanks for coming on. And Unbreakable Moms, be real with yourself. Be a real person. And it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to heal and be open with your partner. So go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.